everyone. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Awesome. Excellent. Good evening. Thank you for being here. Thank you for coming out tonight for Poetry at the Point. My name is Erin Quick. I'm director at St. Louis Poetry Center, and I am filling in for Kenneth tonight. Our beloved Kenneth, he is ill. He's sick today, so we wish him well and a speedy recovery. If you're watching Kenneth, hello, and hopefully we hope you feel better soon and you can come back. This is big shoes that I've got to fill tonight. So thank you all for being here. We're really excited to bring you the poetry tonight of Emerson Gray and Nita Penfold. I want to first give a couple of shout outs to members of St. Louis Poetry Center, without which none of these programs would be able to take place. So thank you so much to all of our members. Also to Missouri Arts Council and the Regional Arts Commission. They also support this reading series and help me. Thank you to them. Thank you, of course, to Focal Point, who host us every month, as they have for many, many years now, well, over 2 decades. So we love the space, and we're grateful to them for letting us be here. Just wanted to give a couple of events that we have coming up. In addition to tonight, we have an event coming up this Thursday. December Magazine is having an event for Sally Van Doren, who has a new book out. So that's going to take place at 7 p.m. at High Low. So if anybody's interested in coming out, we're co-presenting that with December Magazine, and that should be a really good one. And then also next month for our Sunday workshop, we do a Sunday workshop every month. We'll have Elizabeth Hoover, who is a professor at Webster University, and so that will be taking place on November 12th. So if you guys are interested, if you want to workshop some poems, it's free and open to the public. It's all on our website, and we would love to have you there. She'll be leading that. Our website is stlouispoetrycenter.org. Bathrooms, if anyone needs to use them tonight, are out this door and to the left, down the hall. And then there are books for sale tonight from Nita. So at the end of the reading, if you would like to, she'll have books for purchase at the back table there, and you can get those signed as well. So. All right. Oh, and also, if you are watching this on Facebook Live or YouTube, hello, thank you for being with us. And if you're watching this in the future, thank you for being with us too. Please feel free to comment or send questions, and also to share this out later. We love to spread the word about the reading series. So now on to the poetry. So tonight we have Emerson Gray. Emerson Gray is a disabled genderqueer poet based in Southern Illinois. He has been previously published in RFD magazine, as well as the Augment Review, and was nominated for a Pushcart Prize for his work on Crab Fat magazine. He also served as a poetry editor for Chaotic Merge magazine and Arrow Rock Journal. Emerson is currently an MFA creative writing candidate at the University of Missouri St. Louis. You can find him on Twitter at Emerson_Gray Emerson, and we'll post that as well so people can follow. So Emerson, thank you so much. You want to come on up?
Can you hear me okay? Cool. So hi, I'm Emerson. I use he, him pronouns and just kind of here to share some work. As a heads up, I am going to be sharing some content warnings for each of my poems. If at any point you want reading is like dysregulating, I really encourage you to take a space, get a break, do what you need to do. So for me, I really write, and I started writing kind of to process the world around me. I think a lot of times shitty things happen, and poetry kind of helps me make sense of a lot of that. So to kick us off, I'm going to talk about a poem that's about the aftermath of dating a film major, which I don't recommend. There's some content warnings for violence and gore. So here is Why I Date the French Serial Killer Who Shares My Birthday. The Bluebeard of Gambeau is what they called him. Henri Desiré Landru killed 10 women, leaving only a few charred vertebrae as evidence. And as I read his Wikipedia page at 3 a.m. on a Tuesday, after yet another post-breakup existential crisis, I'm struck with the thought that maybe it would have been easier to have fallen in love with a serial killer. That is to say, I've always been into the kind of men who will leave me broken in fiery pieces on a cobblestone street in a town with a French name, maybe not in France. It wasn't the point of the Louisiana Purchase that I could butcher French names like Versailles. That is to say, I'm sure Henri would introduce himself so politely, and as we got to know each other, he'd be a gentleman, walking me out to the car when it's dark, opening doors for me to slip into. His bright, sharp eyes would draw me in, and he'd tell me I was pretty as a flower, but I'm more like a butterfly. That is to say, I drift in the air from one bouquet of red flags to the next. I'd love to believe I could see past his excellent mustache, but I've always been attracted to facial hair, regardless of its owner. Like that film major with the goatee, the one who broke up with me while I was naked and shivering in his bed. I'm bad at listening to those warning signs my body gives me. The sensation of fear crawling down my spine as any 6 or 8-legged creature will do. The hair on my arms standing up at attention. The queasiness that comes with my stomach trying to plot an escape route through my mouth. That is to say, when he leaves my intestines coiled like rope at my feet, maybe my gut will be easier to hear. Yeah. So if you can't tell by looking at me, I'm very queer, very gay. I think being queer is really fucking awesome. It's given me a really good community of folks who've experienced and kind of survived the same things I have and understand me in ways that really other people can't. So this next one, I think that it talks about the idea that, well, you can cultivate this really lovely, like, found family as a queer person. Several of whom for me are actually right here. They're watching from home. But finding that family was the result of losing the one I had, which is a very common, I think, experience for a lot of queer people. So this following piece was published in RFT magazine. If you haven't heard of it, it's a queer print magazine. It's been around since the 70s. It's really cool, really in love with it, really recommend checking them out. So with a content warning for child abuse, this is lineage or lack thereof. You have no heirlooms. After cutting off contact with your entire family, you will throw away everything they ever gave you because looking at the turtle figurine they got you in Florida just makes you think how you were sleeping in your car while they were in Florida after your parents kicked you out of the house for not cleaning the bathroom. You do not have possessions inherited, no golden-edged, leather-bound Bibles are resting on the top of your bookshelf. No handwritten cookies or recipes are stored carefully in wooden boxes in your kitchen. Instead, you have flashbacks, scars furrowed in the meat of your mind, burned impressions of your retinas, of a hand beating time on your cheek, papers ripped from your fingers and flung on the floor, a belt swinging down over and over. You have no heirlooms, just memories, repeating endlessly like a record passed down through the years, skipping on the same carved indentations. Thank you. And while we're on the note of family trauma, this one actually doesn't have any content warnings, weirdly. I don't know how. But this one's called Cavities. It's Mother's Day in 2011. I'm at a marching band festival and they're selling cinnamon sugar pecans, fresh and warm in wax paper bags. The woman who is biologically my mother and interpersonally something else, she buys me some. They dissolve in my mouth, along with any complaints about her missing the last 6 months of phone calls and visits. She knows I'm easy to bribe. She's counted on them. In 9 quarters, 3 nickels, and 6 dimes pulled out of a wrinkled Ziploc bag. For a brief moment, I mistake this for affection. But the moment shatters when she grips my hand tight enough to make me squirm and pulls me quickly up along the cobblestone road, heedless of how my feet ache. She doesn't know my father told me I'm too old to hold hands, and so I cleaned elbows instead. She doesn't know that I'm bad at brushing my teeth, and the orthodontist will berate me for eating too much sugar. She doesn't know that I hate spiders even more than I hate holding hands and brushing my teeth, so she brings me over the huddle of people surrounding a boy, holding tarantula, lets it skitter across her palm. I smile too wide at her when she looks back at me, shove another handful of candy pecans in my mouth, and try to ignore how the arachnid's beady black eyes shine with pity as the artificial sweetness rots my teeth. Thank you. And while we're on mothers and complicated relationships with them, because don't y'all have that, this one has a content warning for gore. It's about my first time fishing in Mark Twain Lake. A previous version of this was published in the Eagle Air Review and was republished in the Autumn Review as well. So this is flashback. The dead-eyed minnow stares at the sky as my mother pushes a hook through its silver-streaked flesh. Remnants of its scales lingering on her hands, its gills fluttering. Strained and weak, it drowns in the warm spring air. I am draped across the boat with one limp, sunburned arm drooping in the water, a bloody fishing hook sticking out of my lip, my oxygen-deprived brain struggling to make sense of her sudden burst of cruelty, and my skin melts into a dull metallic gray, and my hands morph into fins, and I stare at the sky. Thank you. So, my bio that Aaron so kindly read, thank you. I did mention being disabled. Among other things, I'm autistic, if you can't tell by the way that I'm really avoiding eye contact and being a little awkward. So many of us autistic people are really particular about clothes, if you didn't know that. We have a lot of sensory issues, different ones than like autistic or non-autistic people have. And when I was younger, I was really obsessed with those like North Face style fleece jackets. If you're from St. Louis, you probably remember the controversy with the South Butt face jackets. That was like a big thing too. I was obsessed with those fleece jackets, and I have one that I wore like every single day. Got bullied for it constantly, did not care. So this next one is about that, and with a content warning for child abuse. This one is called Unsolicited Advice to the Autistic Kid with a Piss Yellow Jacket and Bitten Tongue. And when they hold down your arms to keep you from fidgeting, with a grip so tight it'll leave bruises, do not resist, but tuck away the movement in your pocket for another day. Let your fingers bleed sorrow from underneath their grasp. This is a crucifixion, and you must keep your head bloody but unbowed. Look them in the eyes because they'll demand it anyway, despite how the black void of their pupils threatens to swallow you down. Cut yourself into palatable pieces so they do not choke. Hold those pieces together. Wrap them in the soft woven blanket your sister gave you. And one day, you'll learn how to be whole. And so yeah, I grew up in Missouri, a small town, kind of 45 minutes west if you're northwest. It's called Troy, for those of you familiar. It's not a fun place. But I wrote about that. The content warning for the use of a homophobic slur. This one is solid. Gravel roads summon great white clouds of dust that coat everything exposed in a Walmart parking lot. Apathetic teens trace messages in the grime on car windows. Mike was here. Wash me. Faggot. The filth suffocates me like the insects that crawl in the clay fields behind my house. Their wings are encased in mud and sacrificed. Their legs twitch feebly with the weight of their circumstances. They make it out, but not whole. So the next few ones I have, there's a few of them revolve all around my partner who passed away in May of 2020. I will say grief is really heavy, so again, if you need like a break at any point, please take one. And the next 4 poems all have a content warning for abuse, suicide, violence, and gore, or one of those 4. So to start us off, this is Death of the Prophet. You always said you saw it coming, the way the bullet would shatter temple walls, one final act of absolution. Each glimpse of the future you saw filled me with dread. I couldn't sleep unless you were next to me, had to watch for the quiet breaths you took, so I did not have to envision the paracord laces on your boots gripping you by the throat, or the bottle of trazodone on your nightstand ascending into your mouth, or the pocket knife in your backpack digging mass graves in your wrists. I knew the future was inevitable, but it was easier to pretend that the visions of death you shared with anyone who would listen or who wouldn't were just the usual gallows humor jokes that we all made. I wish I could hear your voice again, wilting out Kurt Cobain lyrics, missing the comfort of being sad in my passenger seat, a song sung just for me. I wish I could see the euphoric glint in your eyes again, your gaze and hands pinning me to the bed as we tussled like dogs until morning. And the weight of your body pressed into mine is disappearing from my memory already, like your grave in my rearview mirror as I drive away. No penance is enough to resurrect you. I can't ask you to forgive me. next one is called Entrails. It goes something like this. I'm a gutted fish without you here. My organs sprawl untidily around my feet. I know I saw my left kidney here somewhere. I don't feel like looking for it now. I'm told that grief isn't linear, but I disagree. Grief has me carving a direct, razor-thin path on my arm to remind myself that even with my lungs torn free of the cavity of my torso, even with my heart ripped out and discarded into the Missouri River where you kissed me for the first time, as we dangled our feet too close to the swirling water, I can still be something besides hollow. Oh, spooky. It's almost Halloween. Getting ready for it. I think when we talk about grief, it's really easy for a lot of people to kind of look back with rose-colored glasses. I've definitely had issues with my partner of romanticizing the past, I think. And I think in poetry we do tend to romanticize things, and we do tend to make things a little bit better than they were. So this was a poem I wrote kind of trying to acknowledge that. It's called Memoir. And if I have to remember her, I'll remember her like a book read in childhood, and broad strokes of plot and ignorant fondness. I will remember the escapism and curling up with her, and letting myself exist suspended in a moment, no thought of the world outside. I will remember the love overwhelming me with its novel intensity. I'll remember staying up until I couldn't keep my eyes open, keep them from drifting closed with exhaustion, because I wanted to spend the night losing myself in her stories. There are bits of these stories that I will not let myself think of now, blank pages I won't fill in. The way I began to cross out bits of myself I didn't think she'd want to see. The inky bruises staining my skin from her too tight grip, and the pleading look she gave me when I told her I couldn't stay another chapter, and the violent, abrupt ending that still has me reeling. So that was really heavy, so I wanted to end on something lighter. I think I would be remiss to not mention the love I found now. I think it's really good to heal from relationships like that. And this one is for my fiance, Ren, who's watching at home. Love him a lot. I know it's very gay. So this is the last one I have to read, and it's called Decibels. I come from a long line of loud lovers. We shout our devotion from the tops of staircases. We burst through doorways with dramatic declarations of marriage proposals. We scream and sob for hours after breakups. And my first girlfriend, she was loud like me. And for a while, the cacophony of music blasting through car speakers, and noisy sex my roommates complained about, and love I could hear roaring like a jet engine, drowned out the sound of our fights. It ended with a bang, and my ears have never stopped ringing. When I met the boy I later promised to marry, I could barely hear him. I rambled on about every thought in my head, about how Shakespeare was my favorite poet at the time, even though I did a recitation contest in high school and lost miserably, and about how Galapagos tortoises live hundreds of years, even in human captivity. Did he know there was one that had met Queen Elizabeth II as well as Captain Cook? And about how my great-grandmother Ethel had died, but she left me a typewriter. She'd written dozens of stories on it in the 40s. I wanted to fix it so I could write stories on it myself. And he sat and he listened without a word. And only when I was about to leave, tired of filling the air all by myself, he asked me if I still could remember that Iago monologue from my sophomore year. And now he loves me quietly. We sit on the couch. His hand whispers gentle adoration through the forest of hair on my legs. He waits silently when my voice fails me, when the tinnitus drowns out every good thing I can think of and I'm trapped in the past. His everlasting patience for me to find the consonants and vowels I'm searching for. He traps spiders in cups and tiptoes out of the room as I shriek my fear sitting on top of the counter. The overhead light doesn't hum because he keeps it off, because he knows I'll start slamming cabinets and huffing and puffing my frustration if it's on. And sunflower petals from the bouquet he gave me after an impossible day at work drift soundlessly through the air, landing gently on the counter. I've learned to be fond of quiet. Thank you.
Thank you. That was wonderful. So our next poet tonight is Nita Penfold. Nita Penfold's poetry has been called luminous and soul-stirring and has been widely published in anthologies, including recently in the Charters and Charters textbook, Literature and Its Writers, 5th edition, the 2021 Women Artist Datebook from Syracuse Cultural Workers, and Northeastern University's journal, Pensive. Her first book, They Stand Up in Broken Shells, won the 2006 Writer's Digest International Self-Published Poetry Book Award. Her other books are Landing in Oz, The Woman with the Wild-Grown Hair Complete Poems, and Laureen Says, all available on Amazon or back at the book table tonight if you'd like to get one. An editor emeritus for Earth's Daughters magazine, the oldest extant feminist magazine in the U.S., over 600 of her poems and several short stories have been published in the past 40 years. Nita received her BA in Communication and the Arts from Empire State College and her Master's of Arts in Writing from Lesley University in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Please join me in welcoming Nita.
One up the other steps. I haven't done this in a while, so this is good. I would ask that if you have any applause, you wait till the very end. I think it interrupts the flow of the poetry. So this is called Poem Found on a Scrap of Paper While Sorting the Junk Drawer. You are always behind, thinking that you are going to catch up with it, your life, as if it is around the next bend, just ahead somehow, instead of precisely where you are, standing with one scuffed shoe raised to take the next step, stuck. Time sweeps by like a great straw broom in someone else's hands. You wish you could hold back those hands or turn them into wings. I am beginning to drop things. Little beads slip through my fingers and scatter to the floor, a cacophony of silence. It is a metaphor, of course, for the other things I am losing that slip from my memory's grasp, my younger daughter's eyes, my older daughter's hands, my grandchildren as they defy time and gravity and surge forward into a future that tries to leave me behind. It seems a time of blood. Scarlet leaves against red brick mansions, red brocade draped in the windows, everything an open wound. Substitution. The chair does not love the rug, which is indifferent to the piano bench masquerading as a coffee table. Each thing itself longing for something else, some modicum of emotion in an empty room waiting for the fan to assert itself. The purple throw comforts the sofa, who cries to touch the lamp, large and silent and full of light, over the black typewriter, who can spell. You are just skimming the surface, like that dark-winged bat you woke to once, gliding over your head in and out of the bedroom, part of some flying dream you had, and then it was real, paralyzing you with the brush of its wing breath. The surface is like the fog-drenched air, so thick you could just float on it, or the quiet, flat lake. But don't, but don't step in. The waves start as small, smooth ripples and end as a tsunami of memory and regret. Stay still. Float on the surface a little longer. Maybe you won't waken. I find myself a lot of the time stopping myself. I have this resistance to writing and to doing certain things I know I should be doing. And this is what came out of that. When you stop yourself, your resistance becomes an old, hardened, blue-veined hag, cross-hatched and fever-worn, with leathered skin and arms like iron bands. She doesn't put up with all this airy-fairy spirituality. She wants something done, and done right now. No excuses, young lady. No wondering about what it all means or how you feel about it, or even your purpose, but only getting it done. No time to celebrate progress or enjoy the outcome either, only the relentless rant, insistence, that long finger pointing at the next item on the list. She has hard eyes, flint and steel. You would never imagine her laughing. No mediocre trying either. You must be excellent at what you do. You must prove to her that you are worthy of drawing breath, that you might be almost enough. But sneak into her frigid room late at night. You can hear her howling, hunched over a bloody bowl of entrails, regret fouling the air. On creation. Leather bellows blister into the yawn of fire, forcing this iron rod to slacken to a greater will, pummeled on the blackened anvil, hammerhead thinning the edges, then dropped fiery into the mold, where one last rough punch forms the head and it breaks free. The hiss of water, scorching and cooling, one iron nail. And still the boulders yowl, enchanted sentinels, sharp-edged and solid, shadowing the creep of the ocean up the sand to their feet over their bulk. This constancy of water, expanding, retreating, tumbling over lesser rocks and stones, specks and contortions, wearing them down to their smallest intention, like a woman polishing a mirror. I just moved here from the Boston area, so I have a lot of poems about the sea. Wild ecstasy of a mid-June day. Sea colored green mottled marble, white caps urgent in their chase to the shore. Wind a cool buttress buoying the gull's silent wings. Black-bibbed sparrows rut on the boulders, rising above the faded females in a frenzy. Two bikes lie abandoned on the seawall. The boy and girl down at the edge of the swirl, pulling tangled kelp from mussel shells, split open like erect angels' wings. How the sun heats this wintered skin, how the wind engulfs me with its fecund breath, how the day chides those who can see nothing larger than themselves in the bluebell sky, in the smallest crusty starfish, in the speckled rocks. Sometimes I feel I will burst with this beauty, this spirit. Oh, what a paltry word, God. What would happen if I ate the sky? Huge and blue like a giant watermelon, inside's the color of ripe blueberries. It has clouds that are a strange negative image of seeds. If I ate the blue sky, would the night sky appear behind it, the stars poking through like pinholes in a lampshade? If I climb the gnarled arms of the ancient pear tree, I can put my bib on and start munching. I used to think that I could sail away on those cloud battleships, sail somewhere else in the world's expanse to escape, but I never did except in my head. If I ate the sky, would the world change, or only my thoughts? Maybe I should just scoop up some of the sky, open the Blue Sky Special Diner, where soul-weary travelers could rest. Then I could make blue sky pancakes with dreams popping through the batter, or blue sky muffins whose centers contain such immensity that it takes days to eat them. How about mile-high blue sky pie with whipped cream clouds? Take a bite and you'll be in another reality, where time and space are of no concern, where you don't have to go back to work, to school, to pick up the kids, where you pay attention to those dreams that wake you sweating suddenly in the night. If I ate the sky, my belly would always be full. There would be no hunger, no yearning for openness. It would all be contained within me. If I ate the sky, I would become a goddess, my dreams growing with the wildness of zucchini, prolific and tasty in my backyard heart. I'm getting older. This is the time of the slow rise. Pausing to grasp balance by the hand firmly before the first foot moves, taking the weight, waiting for the knee pain or the hip pain, sharp or subtle or gone, gone, gone. This is the time of the push through, move itself like a Tai Chi dance, slow and careful, and grace blessing the muscles as the memories take over and glide into sequence. How the body takes charge. The broad fart, the unexpected rush to pee, scouting bathrooms before an event. How the skin takes on a life of its own, crinkling and folding, hanging from the joints, and whose hands are these, veins into maps? This is the time of the fumble for words, the clap-trap, catty-corner syllable swamp of controvertible pop-top clash of consonants that somehow used to make up words. This is the time of the narrowing and the broadening, the deepening, the settling into self at last. I collected dead things as a child, starting with insects, variegated and delicate, pinned carefully into the cigar box. Iridescent tiger beetle, round striped bumblebee, green stick figure of a praying mantis. My whispers to them went unanswered. Then a pheasant wing with tiny feathers like intricate lace in the wild thrush colors of earth. Turtle shell green in mosaic pattern, raw fleshy part inside rotted away. Small skull I could cradle in my hand, its bone tarnished with a dark shine. Each one a message from something large that beat against my eyelids at dusk, dusting them with mystery. This poem is called As If, and it has an epigraph by David White, as if you deserved what you loved all along. As if you didn't have to prove yourself again and again. As if you didn't have to stand there exposed, wanting so much but afraid, so afraid, having to perform for it, like a trick pony or a monkey with a tambourine. As if you didn't have to do something extraordinary, spectacular, to turn their gaze momentarily toward you, or equally something horrible, your need for some sort of attention so great when you felt mostly invisible, when you felt no one knew or cared who you really were inside, and there was no one to talk to about it who didn't mouth platitudes or beatitudes. As if, as if, as if, as if, as if. As if you weren't whole and perfect there all on your own. Different, unique, original, creative, as if your questions weren't real or valid somehow, as if all questions should have answers when all you longed for was the conversation, not the rule. As if you weren't a spark of that divine energy pulsing through everything that you could feel but couldn't explain. Only the saints seemed to know, and you were no saint. As if you were a piece of God, of goddess, but no one seemed to notice or to feel the same energy in their veins, in their bones, in the early morning sky, in the hundreds of different birds all calling to you from the dying tree in the mist. This is a brand new poem. My mother died fairly recently, at 92, and it's taken me a while to write about it. So this is a draft. It's not quite finished yet, but I really wanted to read it out loud. The Geometry of Grief, and Emerson, Grief, yes. 1. A sadness has come over me. Time has pleaded. My mother dies in January, the coldest one on record, snow inundating the pathways, freezing grief in my heart's hollow with its arctic fingers. If I make myself small, can I tuck myself back into my mother's worn womb? The darkness, the safety. So I don't disappoint her, so she won't die. She has become a cautionary tale held together with wax string and creased brown wrapping paper. I am suspended above my mother's death. She is past her expiration date. No one expects anything of her anymore to be of use. In the end, is the purpose just to be? Her skin becomes a roadmap of forgotten desires, a worn crucible adrift with dead leaves and cracked, decayed seeds dried up into thin shells. She has used up all her plum seeds, given them moisture and energy and nutrients from her own body, then had to let them go to their own growth, despite her misgivings. What is left of herself? She is an unkept promise to herself, cobbling together a tour of her past, stumbling over unopened packages of ramshackle dreams shrouded in impenetrable obstacles that are only veils across her sight. She keeps asking if someone will take her home, saying they have moved her to a new place, fumbling for words. Says she lays down to sleep on the sofa, and when she wakes up, she's in a different house. She wanders the apartment trying to find herself, examines old photos, trips her way through words she can no longer grasp, wondering where she is, what moment this is on her way to somewhere else, talking to her little lost boy, a girl hiding under her chair, her father sitting in the chair next to her, wanting to get the children fed and together so that they can go home with her. She says she knows me. I am her sister. Tells me she is going to smack me so hard if I don't let her out through the garage door, if I don't let her go home. She wakes shell-shocked with memories, sitting among long-dead ghosts. She says, someone came for me, but I didn't know who it was. She says, I never thought it would be like this. Distraught, she asks me to call someone who can help her find out what horrible thing has happened to her, staring at her wrinkled hands. I hold them, trying to ease her terror. She is slashing my heart open. 2. What theorem explains the angle of occurrence between mother and daughter? Why can't grief be akin to geometry, precise in measurements, a finished shape, maybe a triangle or a parallelogram? More like a pile of fabric scraps. You sew one to another in a long line, whether they go together or not, pattern, color, shape, until it slowly takes on a design of its own, a complete form that you could never have imagined. What is the volume of grief? Is the container half empty or half full? How many cubic meters of tears have fallen, or have you shut them off like a spigot in the winter so it won't freeze and crack? My mother built her own cage, and I wanted to release her, but she held all the keys forgotten in her pocket, and I could only release myself. Did I betray her, or did she betray me? Did I resent her, or did she resent me? Both wanting something from the other that neither one could give. I gave my power over to her, as all children do to their first love, but then I took it back. How many yards from her to me, marked off in years, watching her put on her red lipstick? At 15, buying dresses together at Seaman Hood and Maury 1-cent sale. Going to charm school, desperate to discover what a woman should be besides wife and mother, because she wouldn't or couldn't tell me. She was my first love, mother, the shape of my wounding, and I've spent my life trying to make up for her disappointment in life. With me, who broke the rules set out to protect me from her fate. Went my own way, waiting for approval, wanting just one note of pride on her face rather than alarm. My first published poem was an offering that she dropped on the floor and said, "Sweet Jesus," because it was about that unmentionable menstruation. I remember when she wrote, sending her pieces out in the world, which returned them tattered. Then she stopped reaching. When she descended into her underworld and thought I was her mother, the recognition, the joy on her face was never mine, faded when she realized that it was only me, someone who had once been her oldest daughter. But my sadness never weakened as I watched her try to escape her apartment and go home. My mother is gone, and the small child within me can come out of hiding now. She was the one who wouldn't believe me, the one who wanted me to be perfect, who could never forgive herself for being human. I never knew my mother. I never heard her sing. But I remember there was a time when she laughed. 3. In the spring, a wave engulfs me at the dentist's office as I am waiting for my crown to set, the weeping rising up to alarm the dentist, feeling so vulnerable and wanting my mother. I finally understood what comfort she was looking for at the end of her life. It's nearly May, and there are clumps of wet snow frosting the grass and trees, like a child stuck her hands into thick frosting to get a taste. The grass straight-edged tufts breaking through, the daffodils shake their laden heads and shine. Dark grackles with their iridescent wings and yellow beaks chase the other birds away, poking their beaks at the spring grass hungrily, and then are gone. How are we doing for tonight?
Good. Probably do one or two more.
Pardon?
Probably one or two more.
Okay. So this is a poem I wrote when my great-granddaughter was born. What is this thing that stretches backwards and forwards between the generations? A thread, a wire, a wave, a whisper. Some basic presence rides the tide of the years, holding us together, saying, this kindness, that little bow of a lip, a talent for people. Hands that heal, these will be your gift to discover, to revel in, to bring forth into the thirsty world. It is no accident that you have been given these, some fluke of the genes, but a matter of the soul, blossoming through the next wave, the next, like a sea anemone opening and closing to the light. I'll do two more. You wrestle with your muse like Jacob with his angel. She is a dirty fighter. Smacks your head when you are distracted, wrenches open wounds you thought long healed, scars weeping, kicks your instep so that you stumble and yanks your head back to expose your throat, threatening your inertia. You are just starting to name things again, like someone who has thought sight was lost and startles awake as shape and color seep again into consciousness. No more do you need to examine the past for cracks and fissures, like some old woman running her fingers carefully over her wedding china to find the small chips in her belovedly used cup. Time now for healing. Time now for harvest. And this is the last one that I needed. All right. Think of a time when you were truly yourself. That age before the mask was pulled tight, before the roles were welded like armor to your skin. Remember the one thing you loved above all else, that given perfect freedom, you could be found doing when they looked for you to do something else, something useful. The thing that made you feel whole and hopeful, full of something that lifted you out of yourself but anchored you home. So that you didn't know where that thing began, where you ended. So much were you in the river of it, the flow of hand to heart and heart to soul that was all of one piece called you. You know what it is. Remember it. Hold it up like a shiny vintage ornament, turn it to and fro. It is the true gift, just below your conscious thought, itching at you to touch it once more. Latch on to that feeling. Let the stillness find you and the wholeness bubble up from the bottom of your stone well. What might you do with it now?
Right, thank you. So we're gonna go ahead and do kind of a Q&A section. I've got some questions that Kenneth had prepared. Get some of this out of our way. All right. Move this down, move this over. Voila. Oh, I'm in the middle. Okay, cool. That's right? Okay, awesome. So this first question actually is for Emerson. Your poems focus a lot of attention on the body, what the body receives from other bodies, scenes where bodies are in crisis in the presence of other bodies, etc. Could you say a little bit about the role the human body plays in your poetics, both in terms of a poetic subject and also as a jumping off point for other themes?
Yeah. It's a really good question. I think for me, I write primarily about relationships and the body for me is a way of relating to the world. I mean, that's kind of in the most basic sense, like how we access the world, how we access everything. I think that in that terms, for me, the body serves really well as both metaphor for, stand-in for what's literally happening on both kind of the literal level and the emotional level, and also just in terms of like, it's how, I mean, for me, the body is like the jumping off point for everything. You can't, if there is no self, there is no body, there is no way to access anything as emotionally, in the world, all of that. So I think that's kind of why I focus on it so much. Also, writing about organs and shit is fun. It's cool. I like to put the word intestines in as many poems as I can. I think it really belongs there.
Yeah, I mean, the guts, right? That's yeah, exactly. Well, kind of dovetailing with that, there's also often a macabre, dry humor present in your poetry. Are you aware while you're drafting of trying to be funny, or is it something more tonal and subtle?
If I try to be funny, I'm not funny, so I don't do that. I'm really autistic, so I do this thing where I just make observations that to me are just very matter of fact, I'm just stating a fact, and everyone's like, oh, that's really funny, and I'm like, oh, okay. So I guess I would lean more towards the tonal and subtle on that, but it's often I'm baffled that people find my poetry funny. It's I don't get it. I'm I don't think it's, I mean, it's not that it's not funny. I mean, I can kind of see the amusement in it, but for me, I'm always oh no, this is just how it is. And people are yeah, that's really funny. And I'm okay, well, I don't know. I don't know.
No, that's great. Thank you. So these next couple questions are for you, Nita. So you've been publishing for a long time now, and over 600 poems. Yeah, I was and started off, it seems, mostly self-publishing. How has the poetry landscape changed over the last couple of decades, and how has it changed your process as a submitter and poet looking to get published?
I'm trying to figure out how long I've been publishing. So I was 30 when I first published, so it's been 43 years that I've been publishing. And I have to say that when I took my communication in the arts program, I took a poetry class, and my tutor was saying, well, when you get this published, make sure you do this in italics. And I was like, what do you mean when I get this published? And I said, is it publishable? And she said, oh yeah, these are published. So that's when I started sending things out. So I didn't realize that I could send things out. And the first time I sent things out, I wanted to break into the post office and get them back because I was so worried. And then I got something accepted, and I didn't know what poem it was because, of course, I didn't make copies because I didn't know you were supposed to make copies. No one told you these things. I don't think the landscape has changed that much. I think it's perseverance. And as far as my books have been self-published, mainly because I'm a control freak and I tried sending things out and I got honorable mention in some contests and things, but I really wanted to have the control over what went on the cover, what it looked like, how much it sold for, that kind of thing. So I that's why I did my own publishing for that. And also my first book I brought out right after I recovered from breast cancer, and I decided, I shouldn't wait much longer. I should try to get things out. But I really don't think it's changed. It's just people, as I said, persevering, just sending stuff out and I would tell my students, you send it out, when it comes back, you send it out again. You plan for the next place you're going to send it, and you keep sending. And I have to say, in the last few years, I haven't been as much persevering as much as I had before, because I kind of moved into textile arts, so I haven't been doing as much with publishing.
Yeah, thank you for that. And then much of your poetry has been impacted by your spiritual life. What is the relationship for you between meditation, contemplation, and the craft of poetry?
Okay. Well, I have to say my definition for spirituality is that it's your authentic core, is it's what makes you you, that individual part of you, and that spirituality, the creativity is the way you put that spirituality out into the world. So I see that as a really intimate connection. So anything that I do that is meditative or contemplative feeds right into my poetry, because that's the channel that goes through. So, yeah, the conduit.
Yeah, totally. Okay, awesome. These are kind of some questions that we have asked a lot of people. I know that I feel like we're pretty well through and onto the other side in whatever this new different is of normal after the pandemic, but I know that it's impacted a lot of writers in a lot of different ways. So one of the things we are curious about is how did the pandemic affect your work in terms of content, or even in terms of output or process? And that's for both of you guys. Who wants to take it first?
Sure. I think for me, the main thing it did was it helped me. I was at home more, and I mean, I'm still at home more. My partner's immunocompromised, I'm immunocompromised, so for us, the pandemic really isn't over yet in a lot of ways. But I think when it started, it definitely forced me to isolate more, and it also, because I was so isolated, kind of left me alone with my feelings in a lot of ways that I had to face. And I was like, well, I can either sit here in my room and be sad, or I can write poetry about it. So I guess I'll write poetry about it. And it helped me produce a lot more content. I definitely, before the pandemic, had written maybe like less than 10, 15 pieces like total. Now I've got a much larger volume of work, and so it's been published, and I've been able to like send things out more. Also the accessibility of like online classes and online workshops. Neil Hilborn has a writing circle that he's been running for like, almost 3 years now, that I joined very early on in the pandemic. That is incredible, and if you haven't checked it out and you're a writer, I totally recommend it. He's very low cost and very accessible, but it's great.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll be sure to put that on the website and Facebook page too for those who are watching.
It's funny because I'm an introvert, so staying at home was not a problem for me. I didn't feel like it was a huge thing. I mean, worrying about the disease and everything else bothered me, but staying home and writing didn't seem to change much for me, because that's what I was doing anyway. So yeah.
Awesome. All right, so then we always close out with what Kenneth calls gathering some paradise. In the world of poetry or the arts in general, what's really gotten you excited recently? So what new writer have you discovered? What book has recently blown your mind? What art has helped you see your own work in a new way? It could also be music. Which one of you would like to take that one first?
trying to remember the name of the poet that I found. I don't have my thing.
Sorry.
No, that's all right. I'm trying to remember the name of the book. It was something about letting the spirit out or something like that. It was a small chapbook by an African American woman that I just really loved. But I'm going to have to figure that out later. And I also just went to the Naomi Nye reading, and that was wonderful too. And I hadn't heard, and now I'm going to blank on his name. James. I hadn't heard James Crew. Is Crew right or Cruz? I hadn't heard him read before, and I really enjoyed his writing. So
Yeah, those are excellent choices. Yeah, so we'll put those in. And if you think of the chapbook or when you remember it, we'll also add that too. So awesome.
Yeah, so I recently, in my MFA program, there was someone that recommended me the book, Your Emergency Contact Has Experienced an Emergency, by an author named Chen Chen, that I have read now like 4 times in the past like 3 weeks because it was just, it's amazing. He writes very real and it's very like poignant, and also it's funny. It's really amusing. He has a whole poem about shitting, and I'm like, that's excellent. I wish I could write a poem that was like actually good about that, but like I can't. That is, great. I'm jealous of that. And then honestly, in the music realm, that's where I get a lot of my inspiration. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention Hozier, because I am a Hozier girly. He recently released Unreal on Earth, and specifically the song Unknown Nth. So the whole album is like a kind of journey through Dante's Circle. It's really beautiful. And this specific poem is this really this song. I'm doing great. Is this really jazzy, chill song, and then it has this bridge that just like rips your soul open in this really horrible way. Then he puts it back together at the end, and you're just like, I haven't felt something from a song like that in a while. So Unknown Nth by Hozier has been playing on repeat until I can get over it.
Wow. Okay, I'm going to be going to listen to that
okay,
now.
I do have music.
Yo, okay.
Carrie Newcomer's new album, A Great Mercy. That's a wonderful, wonderful album. And there's a wonderful song in there about potluck and about everybody bringing what they have, so.
Nice, awesome. All right. Excellent. Well, thank you both so much for this. Thank you all for sharing your work and your wonderful poems, and for a little bit of inspiration for us to take with us. And thank you to all of you for being here tonight. Just as a quick note here, our next reading for Poetry at the Point is going to be on November 28th, and it's a special one. Much like we did last year where we had a group of poets that came and read together, this one is going to feature 5 poets from the Mississippi Mud Daubers, which is a haiku group that was founded in 2006 by John Dunphy and named by the late Gretchen Batts. And I see one of its members sitting back there in the audience. Hi, Ben. The group of 6 to 10 members meets once a quarter at 222 Artisan Bakery in Edwardsville, Illinois, and meetings consist of critique of each other's work, a celebration of each other's successes, and general fellowship among like-minded poets. So they will have, I think, 4 of them here next month, and so that is again November 28th. We hope to see you there. It'll be the last reading of the calendar year. We take December off for the winter break, and then we'll see you again in January. So again, just a reminder, you'll be able to see this on Facebook as well. Feel free to share it out to anybody who wasn't able to make it here tonight. Again, thank you so much for being here. We look forward to seeing you again, and thank you so much to both of you for this. This was wonderful. So, thank you.
Oh, yeah.